Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Ladies and gentlemen! Welcome to the main event! This is Cinesmack! And the winner is...
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome to bout number 96 of Cinesmack, a podcast about films by filmmakers. I am your host, Mike Keeler. Joining me tonight is our panel of award-winning judges. First, filmmaker and owner of One Genome Short Productions. I'm just a mean green mother from outer space, and I'm bad.
Yeah. I wasn't ready.
Oh my God.
I had a whole thing and all that. So I wasn't ready.
All right.
I was expecting more intro or something. I don't know what I was expecting.
Second, writer, actor, and director Kyle. I got the chills. They're multiplying. Fine.
So I have a very unique business opportunity for all of you guys tonight. I'm going to be opening up a hand jive franchise. So if anybody's interested, we're going to do drive-throughs, walk-ins. We'll take appointments. Everybody's getting hand jives.
And
Totally
jives all
legal.
around.
I checked with the city council. There's no rule on the book about hand jives.
Hang on. The owner of the Patriots is texting me.
I may have silent partners, but let's not talk about it.
Has a
Can
has
I be a
Patriots fan. I get to make that joke.
Can I be a moaning partner?
You can do whatever you want. I mean, as long as you got money.
Third, filmmaker and owner of Arizona Inc. Studios, Andrew Son, be a dentist, Zumwalt.
I don't know. I don't know. Audrey.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Fourth,
Wait, there go the numbers we got.
fourth
I
filmmaker
single-handedly brought down Cinesmack.
filmmaker and owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Tom, you're cruising for a bruising haggis.
I am here to represent the Rick Moranis portion of our listeners. So
Nice.
he's my spirit. He's my spirit animal.
I never thought about that actually, but
I think about it every morning.
I can see it.
Today I shrink the
You
kids.
should be happy. I like him.
Tomorrow I blow them up. Sorry, that was the sequel, wasn't it? Honey, I Blew Up the Kid.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's poke the monkey and find out what we're talking about.
Ladies and gentlemen, motorheads and horticulturalists, welcome to the main event. Tonight, feed me the Rama-lama ding-dong with a candy bar on our way into a battle of song and dance. Who will survive the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and the man-eating plants? In the first corner, from 1978, written by Jim Jacobs, Warren Casey, Bronte Woodard, and Alan Carr. Directed by Randall Kleiser. Starring John Travolta, Olivia Newton-John, and Stockard Channing. Grease! In the second corner, from 1986, written by Howard Ashman, Roger Corman, and Charles B. Griffith. Directed by Frank Oz. Starring Levi Stubbs
I'm gonna save my opinion towards the end of the podcast because I don't want to rain on anyone's parade. So let's move right along to our first round, which is writing.
Just real quick, by saying that, you've just given your opinion.
I know,
so you know.
I have. I know.
Okay.
Has he?
Not to rain on anyone's parade. I mean, it can't be positive. There's no positive
Right.
rain on
No,
anyone's
there
parade.
is.
Do we know the full extent of his?
There is something positive that I have to say about a film, and there's something negative I have to say about a film.
Mike is positive. He doesn't like musicals.
No, I love musicals.
Okay, I've derailed this already.
Yep.
Moving on.
Writing.
So, writing is kind of an unusual category when we do musicals. So I know we'll talk about the music a little bit later, but I thought we'd start first with the story. Both of the stories, there's not a whole lot of depth to them. So I've seen Grease probably 5,000 times, and this was the first time. It's funny because it's one of those movies where you can just kind of put on in the background and kind of forget about, and I know it well enough that I just kind of know what's happening. And what was interesting is when I watched it for the podcast, even though I've seen it so many times, it was almost like I was watching it for the first time because I was kind of watching it with new eyes. I had never examined the movie in terms of the script or the directing or the acting or anything like that. And so one of my favorite parts about doing this podcast is being able to take a discerning look at these movies that I've maybe seen a lot of more times than I should. And so I feel like for Grease, it was the story. I was actually kind of surprised at how deep some of the characters wound up being. The Rizzo character actually is really kind of got a lot of depth to her. It got to her solo song at the end, and I was watching it with my son and daughter, and he's like, I don't understand what she's singing about. And I start explaining it. I'm like, wow, this is really complicated. Like, she's upset because she tries really hard, but she keeps pushing people away. And I think you could do like an entire movie about Rizzo and probably whatever is going on with her dad. And, she likes Kaneki, but he's an asshole. And then everyone in the school's talking about her, but she does like attention, but not that kind of attention. And it's just, I don't know. I thought that was a lot deeper than I thought it was. Little Shop of Horrors.
That's what she said.
Thank you. No, I said horrors. Thanks for fucking me up, dude.
Sorry.
That's okay. My train of thought just fucking threw me on the side of the road. Little Shop of Horrors, on the other hand, I maybe saw once or twice, and I hadn't seen it in a really, really long time. And I remember it being really weird and odd, and I didn't remember getting into it. But this time watching it, I was kind of surprised at how much I really enjoyed it. But in terms of story, it's a very, very, very basic story. And obviously the story for Little Shop of Horrors is just something for them to hang the special effects and music on. But on the other hand, there's some really, really funny lines in Little Shop of Horrors. But ultimately, I think Grease wins just when you compare writing in terms of the quality of the music and the depth of the story and the characters. Just seems like Grease has just a thicker story to deal with. There, I filled 2 hours like I promised. So
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I felt like I connected a little bit better with the characters, or at least I felt more for the characters in Little Shop of Horrors than I did for the characters in Grease. I felt like most of the characters in Grease were kind of unlikable. They annoyed me. Most of them annoyed me, and I didn't really care for them. And that might come into some of that might come into the acting and directing categories a little bit. The way they portrayed these kids, quote unquote kids. The oldest looking high school kids I think I've ever seen in an entire movie ever.
The youngest one was 19.
That's not the writing part of it. What's that?
The youngest one was 19.
Really?
Yeah. The youngest actor.
Which one was that? Do you remember?
Lorenzo
Lamas.
Yeah.
Lorenzo Lamas.
Renegade.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just felt like I cared more about what was happening to the characters in Little Shop of Horrors because I didn't really care for the characters in Grease. I don't know. They were just annoying to me, and maybe they were supposed to be, and maybe it's because they were, supposed to be teenagers who were kind of still figuring themselves out and developing or something. But I agree with you on the Rizzo character being the deepest and the most interesting character. The others, I mean, we didn't really know much about, honestly. I mean, like Sandy or whatever, she's from Australia. That's all we know. Why was she here? Where, why did they stay? We don't know any of that stuff.
She has a great
that's all
line
we know is
explaining.
she's from Australia.
There's a great line explaining why they stay. We had a change of plans.
Yeah.
That's literally all
what?
the information she gives.
What are you doing here? Oh, we had a change of plans. That's not what she said.
That's a hell of a change of plans. You didn't go home? I mean, are you here
didn't-
illegally?
yeah,
Are
nobody
you,
went
are you overstaying your guest visa?
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. So I kind of felt like, I agree that maybe the characters aren't necessarily all that deep in Little Shop of Horrors, but there was something that I identified with them a little bit more. And I enjoyed those characters more than I enjoyed any of the characters in Grease, personally.
So I, like Tom, have probably seen Grease in the hundreds of times. One of my real guilty pleasures is kind of like 50s culture, like 50s music, the things like Grease, like as a prime example of that sort of stuff. And also, when a girl tells you she likes Grease and then you start watching Grease because you like the girl and then you're like, oh shit, I really like Grease. So I actually listened to it again today. I consciously did not watch it. I listened to all the music and the dialogue because I've seen it not too long ago. And wow, there's just like lots of setups to songs. There's really not a whole lot to the script. But I think when you talk about these movies, they're interesting in a writing standpoint because they're almost always adapting a stage play. And that is tricky because making that transition from a stage play to the film isn't always smooth, doesn't always work great. I thought in that aspect, Little Shop of Horrors was stronger because it felt to me like a giant play. If you had a big enough set, I feel like you could have maybe filmed that whole thing in one shot or done it as sort of a play staging, something like that. Grease moves locations a lot, does a lot more movie type things, I suppose. But yeah, the characters are a little shallow, I think, in both cases, just because when you have 90 minutes and 40 of those minutes are taken up by songs, you have to tell a lot of your story through the song and what's happening. So you don't get as much, I don't know if I want to say time with the characters. You don't have as much freedom to tell a deeper story or a more in-depth story. But I thought both movies were good in the story they told. I can see them both being really successful stage plays. Like I said, Little Shop of Horrors to me felt like a play just kind of taken off stage, polished up a little bit and put in a movie. So yeah, that's all I have to say on that.
Yeah, and I will agree with you, Cal, that there's definitely that we're shooting a film, but it's kind of a play for Little Shop of Horrors. In Grease, there's scenes where they try it, and then there are other scenes where it's like, yeah, they're on location somewhere. So they kind of go back and forth in Grease. I don't know. I kind of felt taken out when you put the two movies together. Because with Little Shop of Horrors, it's a stage play that I'm watching on the screen, whereas Grease, it's like part of it's a stage play, some of it's a movie. But as I guess to the writing and the stories, Grease is definitely trying to be more realistic, more down to, kids in high school, kids developing, kids trying to figure out who they are. You have your bad guys and your good guys, and you have all your stereotypes, your motorheads, your bad boys that smoke and have their leather jackets and are racers, and you have the girls that, like to have sex and drink and everything, and you have your good girl. So there's like the nerds are in there. I mean, you have every single stereotype in this show, that then is based around music and dancing. With Little Shop of Horrors, you have a story that at least it felt more like the music was written into the actual idea. Like, so the music was written to accompany the story instead of just music later, or music kind of pushed in there. I would also say that comparatively, the music is similar genres. I mean, you kind of have that da whoop kind of feel to both of them. They're kind of in that 50s kind of genre when it comes to the music, minus a couple of songs from Little Shop of Horrors. But so I found that at least to be a comparison. I personally, I grew up on both of these movies, so I've seen both of them probably more times than I can remember. And, they're just different in types of enjoyment. I would definitely say that I enjoy Little Shop of Horrors more just because I get I don't know, it feels more like a science fiction movie that has been written to hit that feeling for those people that enjoy the sci-fi. And then Grease is more just your stereotypical musical. But they're both well done. I think they're two different genres in that sense of musical. I mean, I guess they're both musicals, but I mean, they're two different kinds of musicals. So yeah, that's my deep thoughts.
It's interesting you mentioned that because they both do share that kind of 50s style doo-wop music.
Yeah.
And I feel like the music is very present in both movies, but Grease feels less like a musical because there are more prolonged scenes without songs going on. They put in more story beats where they don't sing. Whereas in Little Shop of Horrors, sometimes there's a song, a beat, and then another song starts, or they go from a song to a song. And Grease is 2 hours long, which is really long to me for a musical, but Little Shop of Horrors is like an hour and a half, an hour 22 or something like that.
Yeah.
Which almost felt a little too short because they crammed so much of the music into it. I would have been okay with another 10 minutes or so in Little Shop of Horrors.
But that's
the thing too is that I noticed that the songs in Little Shop of Horrors are all kind of tied in with the plot. That they're actually trying to advance the plot with every single song, whereas Grease was more of it was just like, well, now we're gonna have a dance competition for 20 minutes, and it's like that's okay, this is cool and it's fun to watch, but really, where's the plot going? Until Cha Cha comes out and does her thing. So
yeah, in Grease they definitely switched from the Dianetic sound to actual musical. And so they are in and out with the music and where the sound is coming from. Is it in their world or is it them singing to just portray some dialogue? Whereas Little Shop of Horrors, I think the music actually moves the plot and is part of their world in a sense. As to the running time, I do know that originally, and I know that it made it shorter, there was a lot of Stockard Channing's character Rizzo, a lot of her stuff was cut. So like her last song that she does, There Are Worse Things That I Could Do, that wasn't in one of the original cuts of the film. Because I'm not sure if it was length or if it was they were trying to minimize the amount of sexuality and abortion topic that may have been tender at the time when it was released. But I have seen cuts of it where Rizzo's whole possible pregnancy and stuff is not quite as prominent. Because I remember seeing it for the first time with There Are Worse Things That I Could Do. And I'm like, when did this song get here? And it was just a cut that they did to really find out all of that stuff.
Yeah, it's that's a very interesting subplot in Grease because it's the most serious and tackles like a serious issue. Which that was really interesting.
Yeah, especially for high school kids.
Yeah, And I will say in Little Shop of Horrors too, I think they got more with less writing. They did not have to explain, other than the solar eclipse and the green light and stuff, why Seymour or Audrey 2 was there. And I like that. They just thought like, hey, there's a plant from outer space and it sucks blood. And they didn't really explain it to you. And I think that is to the benefit of the film. If they would have got further into there, it just got boring and less interesting.
Well, to that end, actually, while we're talking about alternative endings to Grease, is which version of Little Shop of Horrors? I should have asked you guys this like 3 weeks ago, but which version of Little Shop of Horrors were we supposed to watch for this? Because there are two, and I didn't know. So, did you guys watch the one where the people win or when the plants win?
So the official cut of the movie is where everybody wins. Because when they originally showed the Broadway version of the show, which is the plants actually take over, it did very poorly with test audiences. Right. And so they actually went back and that is the only song that was written kind of out of context, which is why it's a little bit different than every other music in the movie, is the Mean Green Mother from Outer Space. That was added for the alternate ending.
And, yeah. And interestingly, it was nominated for an Oscar.
Right.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But
so did you guys?
Is there actually a version where the plants?
Yeah, that's what I watched.
Yeah, there's an alternate ending.
Where did you see that? Because I just got, I just went on like Hulu.
Yeah.
I had a hard time finding it online, so I got it on Hulu. And
so was it like 2001? I think Frank Oz, like they worked with Frank Oz and put. Yeah, and they put like a director's cut together. The original original ending, and where the plants basically like the flash shot is another Audrey plant like on top of the Statue of Liberty, like swallowing her up. So it's pretty gritty and it's definitely not finessed. It's not, but they said that that last couple minutes that they tacked on cost $1 million. I mean, the special effects in it are not. I mean, they're not horrible. I mean, they're okay for the time. Obviously, they weren't able to perfect them because they wound up cutting it, but. It was funny because I was watching it and then also kind of looking at trivia and stuff while I was going through. I'm like, oh man, there's an alternate ending where the plants win. That's crazy. And then she ate Audrey, or like Audrey 2 ate Audrey. And I'm like, I don't fucking remember this happening. And it got dark. And I'm just like, oh shit, I'm watching. This is like
in the middle, like where the part where Seymour actually saves her.
Yeah, he doesn't save her.
It's actually changed to where he doesn't, and
he actually.
Yeah, she gets eaten, and then Seymour actually gives up, and he feeds himself to the plant.
Yeah. So that's why I was like.
So where did you guys get that version of it?
That's like the standard DVD version you get now. If you go and just buy it at the video store or buy it off iTunes, that's the version that's now considered the.
That's not what they rent you online.
The director's cut. It's the director's.
I'll have to look for it. Yeah, I heard about the director's cut, but I had heard that they replaced, like Jim Belushi came in and replaced another actor.
That's the original. That's the theatrical cut that you saw.
Yep.
Jim Belushi isn't in the director's cut.
Right. And then the director's cut, they put the original actor back in.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the only thing I had heard was different. I didn't realize that the story was so dramatic.
Because they came back and did a bunch of computer editing to be able to get Frank Oz to redo the real Broadway show version.
It was great, and I think it'll score at least one more point with me tonight because I saw that version. So
interesting.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and put it to a vote, gentlemen. Tom,
I'm gonna go Grease on this one.
Gabe,
I'm gonna go with Little Shop.
All right, Andrew,
Little Shop of Horrors.
And Kyle.
I'm going to vote for Grease.
All right. In the stage play of Grease, the song Look at Me, I'm Sandra Dee had a reference to Sal Mineo, who was murdered in 1976. For the movie, the lyric was changed to reference Elvis Presley, who died the same day the scene was filmed. It's crazy.
They kept it in?
Creepy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mean Green Mother from Outer Space, written for this film, is the first Oscar-nominated song to contain profanity. As a result, the song was edited, replacing the more risque lyrics with lyrics cut from the final film, though included on the film soundtrack. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So South Park wasn't the first, the first What's Sabbath.
So, hey, Tom.
Yeah.
I have a question that might be kind of up your alley as far as Oscar type stuff.
Yeah.
Regarding that song, how long have they done like original song? Have they done that for like basically forever with the Oscars?
I mean, back to the 30s at least. I don't know. I am on Google now, and I'll look, but I don't know off the top of my head. So
Okay. No, I was just curious because I wondered, obviously, well, I guess I don't know. I personally don't know exactly when they started doing the Oscars, but it was pretty early.
34.
And, what's that?
34 is when they gave out the first song Oscar.
Original song.
Okay.
Original song, and that was at the 7th Oscar. So the first 6 they didn't give out original song.
Yeah, because I wondered how many of them actually, like they even looked at that
Because they
or
weren't
actually
talkies.
had original songs written for those.
Yeah.
Obviously there was a score. I imagine that original music or score or something like that was maybe earlier, but original song where it's like kind of almost like a popular song with lyrics or whatever. I didn't know how long they had been doing that.
All right, let's move on to our second round, which is acting.
Wow, this will be a fun one, I think. Okay. I discussed in the writing round how the characters were portrayed in Grease, and I don't know. I think the acting was good in Grease, but maybe this comes down to directing. I don't know what category to put this in, but I really felt like they portrayed a lot of chaos. It seemed like just barely controlled chaos most of the time, and it was just this kind of over the top, wild ass kind of acting. They're always like talking over each other, and they're like, there's always this kind of like, I don't know what to call it, but they're always like ribbing each other and throwing stuff at each other, and it's always slapping each other, and it's just like, oh my God, it's too much chaos. I can't keep track of it, and I don't know. I have a feeling they were directed to act that way, and I just and most of the characters I didn't find very likable because of that stuff. That they were all being like mean and rude to each other, but maybe that's just my ignorance and my lack of having children. Maybe that's just the way kids are, and that's a really actually very accurate portrayal of them. But I don't know. I don't remember any of the acting really standing out to me in Grease. But maybe you guys can change my mind. However, the opposite was true in Little Shop of Horrors. I thought the acting was fantastic. Now, sometimes it was over the top, but these guys, these actors were just really good at being over the top. Steve Martin's performance is just fantastic. I just love him in that. Bill Murray was hilarious as that character. I don't know. And I thought Rick Moranis was a great choice. I'm not sure he was a great singer, but I thought he was a great choice for that part, and I thought he did a really good job portraying that part. I really enjoyed the characters and the acting in Little Shop of Horrors. They didn't annoy me and rub me the wrong way. But I don't know. Maybe you guys can convince me otherwise.
Don't forget John Candy.
Oh, John Candy? Yeah, of course.
God, everybody's in this thing.
Christopher
I know.
Guest. There's a lot of really good actors.
Yeah.
Yeah, really cool actors.
And that was kind of interesting. I liked. At first, I was like, why is he acting like that? Why is he acting so kind of like goofy? Like, what is that plant in your window? I guess I'll just have to buy $50 worth of flowers. And I thought, okay, that's a little ridiculous. But I'm like, well, it kind of makes sense because it's almost like this plant has power over people and makes them do things they wouldn't normally do. So I was like, I can work with that. I can live with that. But Yeah, there were a lot of great cameos, and I thought the acting was fantastic, honestly, for my taste.
Yeah, I would say that to that point, it almost felt like Little Shop of Horrors was almost close to what you would consider like a Muppet movie, where there was these kind of over the top performances with songs and everything, and it just kind of fit in the world. Like they weren't trying to be real.
Right.
And that's, I guess, I don't know. I guess that's kind of the difference that I would see with acting in Grease is, they were trying to be real, and yet it was kind of, I don't know, they were just kind of okay. They were flat. It's not that they were bad acting. It's just, I mean, John Travolta, you see him in Saturday Night Fever and Urban Cowboy and other, great, and he's a good actor, and this is just kind of like, I don't know.
I thought he was kind of the best of the bunch, though. He was the
cream of the crop.
He was the one who commanded your attention when he was on screen. And I liked his performance. I don't think Grease is full of particularly strong acting. I would say like standout acting, but I think it's competently done. And Little Shop of Horrors, I think Rick Moranis is the perfect choice. I don't know who else I could envision playing that role. His physicality of being kind of dumpy and hunched over and dejected and like beat down by light, he's like perfect at that. He's got a great face for it. He maintains the character so well. It just all comes together really well in that performance. And the cameos are amazing. Steve Martin is, talk about stuff that's over the top. Like Steve Martin is having the time of his life. Just like, I'm going to fuck around so much. Watch this. And I liked Bill Murray's part. I thought it went on a little long, and it was like, okay, this is the same. It's the same joke for 6 minutes. I was like, okay, I get it.
It's funny. It's funny. He's hilarious.
I'm not saying it's bad. It just, I was like,
you're right.
Okay,
it's a little long,
I get it. A little bit, but I feel like in the movie they were all like, we're gonna have fun. Like it felt like they were having a lot of fun with it. And yeah, man, I'm a big Rick Moranis fan, and I have never seen this movie before. And man, he's just perfect. He's perfect in this movie. Really great choice for the character.
When I saw it, so I must have seen it like late 80s, I suppose. When did it come out? 89?
86?
86.
So yeah, I would have seen it like late 80s, shortly after it came out. I don't know, like the Steve Martin character kind of freaked me out a little bit, probably because I hated the dentist, but I just didn't really appreciate the performance. But now looking back on Steve Martin's body of work, like this is really good because he doesn't do Sinister a whole lot, but he does it in a I don't know, and it's goofy, but at the same time I don't want to say he doesn't overdo it, but he hits that perfect balance between just like insane madman and just you can't take your eyes off of him because you don't know what he's going to do next. So I think it was just it was a really, really fantastic performance. So,
the other thing I guess with Grease that I always felt was really odd, and perhaps this is a more for the time period in Grease, Olivia Newton-John's character. I know Sandy is supposed to be this naive, but it's almost like overdone. Like I was just like, why does he like her? Because I'm like, she's just so kind of And I don't know, maybe it was supposed to be, the girl in the 50s was kind of that naive, cute little homemaker perfection kind of thing. I don't know, but even now watching it, I'm just like, why her? Like, okay, yeah. She seems great at the end and she comes around maybe, but I'm just like, you seem like a lot of work.
Their relationship is very interesting because throughout the movie, they're very confused about what they want from each other, and they don't seem to have a very good grasp of of what they're doing to each other. Like, I think when John Travolta sings that song, Sandy, she leaves after he like tries to make out with her and he's been such a douchebag to her. And then he starts complaining in the song about how she's leaving him and he doesn't understand what he's done. And I'm like, holy shit, man. That's really naive.
You tried to feel her up and she left and you're like, you broke my heart. And you're like, try to grab my boot, dumbass.
It's weird. Yeah.
You were about to sexually assault me and I walked away. So consider your heart broken.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, then they come back together. It's such a confused story, like love story between them.
Yeah. It is.
Whatever happened during the summer must have been incredible because they cannot get over it, apparently, despite douchebags are being to each other.
And evidently, he
never makes it up.
No.
He must never have tried to, mac on her at all during the summer. They must have, held hands and smiled at each other, and there was never any physical kissing, contact, nothing. Because what?
Well, you can tell what happened over the summer by listening to Summer Nights and just know that what happened was somewhere between holding hands and fucking nightly.
Right.
You know the truth lies in between those two stories because that's the way it goes.
I will say that John Travolta's performance when he is trying out the different sports, though, that entire montage is just funny because when he gets up to bat and he grabs the catcher's mask and pulls it and slaps it again, or I guess it's the umpire. Oh my God.
And that they came up with like a gag for it was like 6 different sports. It was great.
Yes, and he has the cigarette in his mouth. I mean, it's good. That whole thing was. I did enjoy that, so I got to give him props at least for that part.
The wrestling one was good too.
Yeah,
I was a fan of
it. I don't know. Was car racing really that big of a deal? Maybe it still is, and I'm just out of the loop.
I don't know.
Because the car race thing with like the spikes on the wheels and stuff was, I mean, I don't know how practical that is, by the way, but
you can't go through a drive-through with those.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking tearing up the side of the car. I mean, back then those cars were made out of steel.
Imagine the injuries at the car hop. You're running, you're like crashing into ladies' legs. You're taking out roller skates.
There wasn't the prize at the end of that, like you got the other person's car.
Yeah, the pink slip.
Yeah, pink slip.
So why would you go? Why would you do that and then like try to destroy that car? Why would you want a car that had been
right
that you had destroyed?
You're the leader of the Scorpions, and you don't care. I mean, you're Crater Face,
you're gonna jump the car anyway.
Right.
That's right. I'm gonna burn it in front of you because I'm a bad boy.
That 40-year-old Scorpion driver.
Oh man. The movie's full of old people. It's great.
Yeah,
I can't believe.
Does that fall under acting? Does casting fall under acting?
Yes.
Because I do feel like casting. Like we talked a little bit about Little Shop and how, Rick Moranis was great and all those cameos. I think the casting is just fantastic for Little Shop. But I do feel like the casting for, and maybe for practical reasons, I don't know, the casting for Grease, everybody seemed way, way too old to be in high school. Like everybody.
Oh boy, are you right on the money there?
Yeah, it's just like, but sometimes they do that. Sometimes they can get away with that. They, these people are a little bit older, but they look younger. But so few of these looked young enough to be in high school.
Here you go, Gabe.
Musical, and you look at, oh shoot, I had another one in my head, but those actors actually look younger than they are, and so it's believable.
Right.
Well, here you go. As of June 1977, when filming began, Stockard Channing was 33. Michael Tucci was 31.
Yeah.
Jamie Donnelly was 30. Annette Charles was 29. Olivia Newton-John was 28. Barry Pearl was 27. Jeff Conway was 26. Didi Khan was 25. John Travolta was 23. Dinah Manoff was 21. Kelly Ward, Eddie Deason were both 20. And as we mentioned before, Lorenzo Lamas was 19.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, like in their 30s.
They are
mean,
in
wow.
their 30s, dude.
Yeah,
Talking
and
about
I
some
get
people
it. You
who
know,
were in high school while the other people were in elementary school. Like,
Some of those
That's just
people
crazy.
they graduated from high school, and some of those people weren't even born.
Yeah.
yeah. So not only did I feel like that the acting was maybe not all that stellar in general for Grease, but I felt like the casting choices were maybe a little misguided. You know, I get it. I get why you put John Travolta in there. I get why you put Olivia Newton-John in there. You know, I get that to a certain degree, but they also didn't really seem. They just didn't seem like high schoolers. So I don't know. I don't know if you could have shifted the kind of like time period. You know, as far as like could you have made this like a college thing? Because you know you would have come back to college from summer, but maybe not. I don't know.
I think it's funny that when the leader Scorpion shows up and puts his arm around Rizzo, everybody's like, "Oh my God! Oh, what?" And actually, I'm pretty sure she was older than him.
yeah.
But then
Yeah.
Vince Fontaine starts hitting on Marty, and everybody's like, TV personalities. What are you gonna do? And it's like, I think that's
Yeah.
creepier. I think
Yeah, it
that's
was pretty
creepier.
Yeah, that's
It
a
was
little
pretty
more.
Well, and I think this may go into overall. Maybe we can talk about this in overall, but I think Grease plays a little bit differently in today's culture with the whole Me Too movement and the more awareness on
Oh, boy.
sexual harassment, that kind of thing. So we can talk about that later, but I think it definitely plays differently than it used to. And and those scenes that you mentioned in particular kind of draw attention to that.
There's some very cringy moments where I was just kind of like gritting my
Right.
teeth, like, that's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, well, even like one of the more popular songs, it's like, tell me more, tell me more. How does it go? There's a part where it's basically like, did she put up a fight?
Hmm.
And, and that kind of stuff. And it's like, I'm not so sure. I'm not sure that was appropriate then. It's definitely not. It's definitely a little cringeworthy now.
Yeah.
Now, I have to. I'm gonna play the the other side of this too, because so that way both get fair screen time, as they say. So you can look at Little Shop of Horrors as well, because the dentist does do some pretty gruesome things to Audrey with beating her. He's
Yeah.
he's handcuffing her and having his way with her against her will.
Yeah,
and
but
then
they
around and saying, "I
portray
love you."
that. They portray that in such a way that that's a bad thing.
Yeah,
The other characters say he's not a good man, and then he's the first one that gets fed to Audrey, and it's because we don't like him because he does those things.
No,
Whereas in Grease, it's kind of like played off as like, oh, that's just the way boys and girls interact.
yes.
Boys grow up and girls take it, and that's the way it is. And did you get any this summer? And did she put out or not? Tell me more, kind of thing.
Was that a time period?
Well,
thing?
I'm sure it is. I think we went back and looked at a whole bunch of of our favorite films from the past. We would find those moments that culture has changed since they were released, and we would be sensitive to different things than we were at the time, for sure. I'm not saying it's. I'm not saying Grease was necessarily intentionally being sexist or anything, but.
Right.
But now, when we look at it now, we're like, maybe that wasn't so.
It was the 70s.
Yeah, it's all right.
All right. You guys have anything else you want to add for acting?
Clint Eastwood, is that you?
Yeah.
Dude, your voice got like Unforgiven level grovelly just now, so you know.
I know.
Yeah.
I was trying to clear my throat and I didn't get it cleared in time.
That's how
Just do that all the time.
Plus, I just ate a Reese's peanut butter cup, so everything's like sticking to the back of my mouth.
Are
And
you
you're not
Ew.
sharing?
Are you reading the Clint Eastwood Guide to Acting? Because that's how he did $1 Million Baby. So
Right. Reese's peanut butter cups.
He didn't clear his throat for 6 months and just ate Reese's peanut butter.
Oh my God.
It's kind of like putting peanut butter on the tongue of Mr. Ed to make him talk.
Right.
So it's kind of the same thing.
Right.
So I always heard they put like little electrodes in his mouth and shocked him to make him talk.
I've always heard
that's not true.
peanut butter, but
Peanut butter sounds much more humane.
All right, let's put it to a vote. Gabe.
I'm going to go with Little Shop.
Andrew.
Little Shop of Horrors.
Kyle.
Yeah, Little Shop of Horrors.
And Tom.
Man, I hate just falling in line, but yeah, Steve Martin's wins it for Little Shop of Horrors.
I agree with you there. It supposedly took Steve Martin 6 weeks to film all his scenes. He contributed ideas such as shocking the nurse in the face. Originally, he was to knock her out using his gas mask and ripping off the doll's head. This was the only movie to have Steve Martin and Bill Murray in it. Can you believe that?
Wow,
And
really?
you know
Yes.
what?
That's crazy.
They looked like they were having so much fun
Oh,
together
yeah.
in that scene.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was
there's-
like, oh, man.
I had
That was awesome.
I had more trivia. Bill Murray kept coming up with ad libs and stuff. So when they went to the editing room, they had a really hard time putting everything together because he would change up stuff every chance he got.
Yeah.
I mean, not all
experienced
that's in the script. I can't believe it.
While shooting the Grease Lightning musical number, Jeff Conway was accidentally dropped, hurting his back. Conway started taking painkillers, eventually abusing prescription drugs, and spiraling into drug addiction until he died in 2011 at age 60.
Holy cow.
Wow.
Yeah,
Jesus.
sorry,
There's a
sorry not to
few-
bring you guys down, but
Jeez.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but
Thanks
there's
a
a
lot.
few depressing stories there, too.
that come off of Grease. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
one. That's just one.
That's just one, yeah. Yeah, there's a few, unfortunately.
Yep.
I won't bring us further down, but
Yeah, leave that to me, Gabe.
yeah, I'll let Mike do that, or you can do that on your own if you're so inclined to be depressed.
Mike hates musicals so much he's going to submarine this podcast.
I do not hate musicals. Not in the
Okay,
least.
Gabe. Okay, you like Denzel Washington and some stuff. Okay.
Some stuff. I don't know. You pick something out for me, and I'll watch it.
All right.
You tell me which one I need to watch.
All right.
I agree. Yeah,
Man on Fire.
I've seen that.
The
I've watched that several times. I don't know how to feel about that.
Bone Collector.
That one I haven't seen. But Man on Fire has been on HBO.
I love Man on Fire.
I have mixed feelings about it because I kind of enjoy it, but it's also it's super dark and very almost sadistic.
I love it.
It's violent and sadistic, and I don't know how to feel about it. And I'm interested in the editing technique that they used.
Oh, well, Tony Scott was on acid the entire time as he was cutting it.
Oh, it had to be. Did he actually edit it?
I loved his style of directing, but I don't know if he edited it or
anyway,
not.
that's probably a discussion for another podcast.
Yeah.
But the editing style on that is really interesting, and I'd like to know how they do that, because it's like, well, do they have to have like 10 different shots of that same thing in order to kind of do that kind of overlaid, flashing, crazy editing that they do? I'd like to know how they do it.
All right, let's move on to discussing Little Shop of Horrors in Greece at our third round, which is directing. Sorry, Gabe.
No worries.
A lot of the stuff that we've already talked about, it's hard to, I don't want to totally rehash everything we've talked about, but, Frank Oz directed Little Shop of Horrors. It definitely feels, like I said before, kind of like almost like a Muppet movie. It's fun. It's lighthearted. You enjoy watching it. There's some really good composition in a lot of the shots. And I'm not sure if that was a mix between where the director wanted the camera to go, or if it was just the actual cinematographer, saying, oh, this is a better shot. But there were some really neat compositional shots that I don't know if added to the fun of the story, or if it just kind of added some neat little quips to watching what you were investing into your little eye holes. I would say that there's a lot of like almost steady, constant shots where they don't cut, and he did a really good job with making those seamless. And even if some of them were cuts, they're hard to tell. He really keeps the motion moving, and what is going on in the scene. He keeps it very animated and working, so that way the camera is always doing something. You're always focused. There's never kind of just this low point. Even at the very beginning, after Seymour walks up the stairs and he pulls back and comes across Audrey 2 as a little tiny sapling after he feeds him the very first time, and you see him slowly grow and he squeezes out of the can and everything. It's a really neat shot that he did there. And again, that definitely may come to the cinematographer. They also, since we get to talk about cinematography during directing, I thought it was really fascinating that they slowed everything down for a lot of the scenes with the plant.
Careful.
Oh,
you're treading on trivia.
Oh. They slowed stuff down. I guess I'll just end it there. I guess the reason I bring it up is because, I mean, that was a pretty neat technique that, had never really been done, to be able to get the fast moving dialogue from the puppet or Muppet or the whatever you want to call it for the plant. That was quite neat. That was developed for this film, and I thought that was really, really neat. And I'll let, I guess, Mike do some trivia so we can talk about it later, I guess.
That's all I've got to do.
I've gushed a little bit on Little Shop, so now to Grease. I will say that in Grease, there are some really neat shots. Most of them are static and locked down. There's a few pan shots that are like when they're in the drive-in, they do a pan across all the cars, and it's like, oh yeah, you've seen that 1,000 times. But I will say that there's some really neat work done for the car racing. There's a lot of cuts, but they did some really neat shots with high speed and moving down when they're in the viaduct and following the cars and cutting back and forth. And I'm not sure. I would guess that John Travolta and I don't know the Scorpion. I don't know the guy's actor who played the lead Scorpion guy. I'm not sure that either one of them drove, because they do some pretty interesting driving. But I did enjoy the cinematography and the actual directing of that scene. It's pretty high paced and almost out of place for the rest of the film, just because it is so high paced and there is something going on the whole time very quickly. There's no song. It's not really dragging. You're just watching this drag race. And so I liked that a lot. I thought that was a really neat scene. As to the rest of it, it's like, okay. A lot of static shots, a lot of weird pans. There's no zooming that I noticed, just, and then there's the really odd directing choice at the very end where the car flies up into the clouds, which
what was that?
Always have found really bizarre.
I wondered about that too.
Yeah. And it like took this, we're trying to make this somewhat realistic film of these high school kids, and they like made this weird dream sequence, or not dreams. I don't know. It was just really bizarre. And I don't know whose choice that was, but it was done really badly too. Like, it was very obvious it was like a green screen or something, because it was just bad. And I don't know. The directing in Grease was okay. It wasn't anything to write home to mom about, but so that's my down and last trodden of the directing. Anybody else think it was amazing and I'm just a dumbass and I don't know what I'm talking about? I wouldn't have shot it that way.
Yeah. Well, as far as the cinematography, I think the cinematography was pretty decent in Greece. There was a lot of good low light cinematography in it.
The beach scene is really cool at the beginning with the sunset. I'll give you that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely some nice cinematography in there. I mean, it's a pretty looking film, and there's a few nice camera moves in there. There's a part where Sandy is singing "Devoted to You" or whatever. I don't remember the name of the song, but she's
Hopelessly devoted.
hopelessly devoted. Yeah,
It was nominated for an Oscar, Gabe. Come on.
that one was
She's
too.
playing in the kiddie pool.
It was.
Well, and then there's some nice camera moves in that scene that I recall. It was kind of moving around the yard while she's out there singing, and I really enjoyed the cinematography in Little Shop as well. I thought it was beautifully shot. And we can talk about this in overall, but the sets are a little bit different. It's a different feel altogether, but I think the cinematography is very nice. And again, some really nice low light photography. And that's one of the things that I struggle with. I don't really know when we're doing our films how to do that. I have no idea how to get a good crisp low light shot without opening up the iris too much or giving it too much gain or something and just like making it grainy and not nice.
Shoot on film.
Yeah, that might help for sure. I'm a proponent of video, but I understand the advantages of film and the look of film. I appreciate that. But a movie I saw recently, part of recently was Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx.
Collateral.
Collateral.
That movie's amazing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that a Michael Mann film?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and a lot of low light cinematography in that, and I think that's one of the early films where they leveraged video quite heavily. And in some instances in that one, you can kind of tell it's video and not film. Something about probably the frame rate or something. But again, really nice low light photography in that because everything happens at night. And a lot of times it's in the interior of the cab or something, or in a nightclub or something like that. But I really appreciate that in both of these films is really great low light photography.
All right. Just real quick, Gabe, since you and Andrew both talked about it, the cinematographer on Grease, probably one of the reasons why the beach scene looked so nice is he was the director of photography on Jaws.
Oh.
He also, I just fell
They
down
cut
this.
the shark scene.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, they cut Capricorn 1. Let's see, Rocky 2. Stripes, Rocky 3. Thornbirds. He did all the Thornbirds, the miniseries. Rocky 4. Biloxi Blues, Child's Play, Hot Shots, Sniper.
Is Hot Shots the parody, the Top Gun parody, or the Rambo?
Sniper, Cop and a Half. Let's see. Trying to go up. I just saw a bunch of them, and then the gentleman that did Little Shop of Horrors was with, let's see, Superman 2, American Werewolf in London, Trading Places, Superman 3, Michael Jackson Thriller, Spies Like Us, Little Shop of Horrors, and then a few more like Michael Jackson videos. So, yeah. Oh, Brewster's Millions. Or no, Trading Places. Oh. Sorry, I said Trading Places.
Oh, you got me excited when you said Brewster's Millions, man.
Sorry.
I love that movie.
But yeah, I mean, both of these guys have a really nice list of films under their belt.
Yeah, and I definitely appreciated the cinematography in both. I thought they were both well shot. I have problems with some of the other directorial choices in some of them. I felt like the direction in Greece was very chaotic. And I don't know why I felt that. Maybe nobody else feels that, but it's just like there was just so much chaos in all the scenes. They're all kind of over the top, wild, crazy, slapping each other and all that jazz, and I just didn't really. It really kind of bothered me. It was like, okay, this is a little bit of overkill. I don't need this much. But I thought, and then I also thought, we mentioned this earlier, that the cut was a little bit too long. I felt like, okay, well, they could have tightened up some of these things and gotten to more of the songs which we enjoyed, and they probably could have gotten closer to an hour and a half or an hour and 45 with Grease, and that's one thing I actually appreciated about Little Shop, is I enjoyed it enough, like Kyle, that I could have stayed with it longer. But I appreciate that they tightened it up. They made it what it needed to be, and there wasn't a lot. You weren't sitting around going, okay, when's the next song, or what? Let's move on. Come on, let's keep going. The story kept going, very efficiently, and I appreciated that. So, yeah, I don't know. And then what was with the car at the end in Greece?
I've never understood.
To me, that implies the way that's done. That implies some sort of like death, or like they died and they're going off into heaven in the car. But that's not what happened. But that's what it kind of felt like. And then they're flying in the clouds, and like what?
They go
happening?
above cloud cover. It's
weird. What's going on?
It's weird.
I talked to my girlfriend and I watched these movies together, but we talked a little bit about Grease, and today I kind of texted her and I was like, I totally forgot. I must have seen Grease 100 times, but I totally forgot at the end for some reason that they just kind of come through in a car and then they lift off and they go into the sky. And John Travolta's face, he's like surprised that the car is leaving the ground. And then they're waving. They're so happy. It's so bizarre. And when I mentioned that, I can't verify this. I haven't looked it up, but what I heard in this conversation I had with my girlfriend was that there are some people, or conspiracy film people who read into film, think that one or both of them may have died, and this is them reuniting. I don't know what the evidence for is that in the movie, but I do know at one of the songs John Travolta sings about seeing her again in heaven, which is really, really strange because it doesn't really fit in with the rest of the song. But I don't know. Yeah, it's really, such a bizarre ending.
It's really a movie about teen suicide.
Well, but
I can see them dealing with it. They deal with everything else.
Hold on. I can end this right now.
All the other cast members are like waving up in the sky, like
I know nobody is freaked out.
Good luck.
I mean, they should be falling on the ground screaming. They're witnessing some sort of alien abduction. I mean, it's insane. The level of reality just goes right out the window.
Okay, Jim Jacobs wrote the original book and musical alongside Warren Casey. He came out to TMZ to let them know Sandy was alive the entire time and was never close to death's door. In his words, whoever came up with the theory must have been on acid. So there you have it, folks.
Okay. So then I would love to hear him logically explain a flying rebuilt car.
Here you go. The events of the film actually happened. In the world of Grease, people just like to occasionally sign their feeling, and flying cars aren't metaphors for rising to heaven. They're just cars that have the power of flight.
Okay.
What?
That's a terrible explanation.
Yeah, that's a cop-out right there.
You set a level of reality in your movie, and when you completely break it in the end, all right, I get that we live in a world where we all sing with each other, and then we don't look at each other and go, wasn't that weird? Why did we all just sing that? Why couldn't we just have a conversation?
Yeah.
Right.
But then when you fly away in a car at the end, you've gone to another level.
It's like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang meet Grease without any explanation.
Well, yeah, but in that movie, the car just flies and nobody talks about it, and the rest of the world is pretty normal except for a few songs. Right. It's like, what?
I guess if that car flew with it being Grease Lightning, I probably wouldn't have put it up for a pink slip because that's a pretty amazing car.
No, you got a flying car, dude.
Why did you drag race and be on the ground?
That was a completely different car, though, wasn't it?
It was
Yeah,
a
this
good
car is
Marquis
like
Nine,
completely rebuilt. Maybe this whole thing is Kaneki got hit in the head with that door. Maybe the movie after that is like Kaneki's fever dream is his like brain is bleeding
Right.
out. It's like, oh, I hope Danny and Sandy fly off in a car and live together forever. And they're rushing him to the
We'll
hospital.
all be together forever.
Yeah, but
Forever.
But
And-
there's all that other stuff, like even during You're the One That I Want, that song at the end when they go through the funhouse and stuff. Leading up to that, it's even Danny's wearing the sweater. He's still all in black, but he's like, I'm trying to be cool for Sandy. And I mean, they're even trying to like wrap up the conflict between the two of them, even though we're going to then fly away in a damn car.
Has anybody else seen Gerald's Game on Netflix?
Yes.
Okay, so this to me is a Gerald's Game sort of ending where the whole movie is really good, and then at the end, the Stephen King fucks his own movie or his own story up by going like it's all spooky and supernatural and not just a cool story. And then at the end, they're like flying cars. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
Gerald's Game. I thought you were talking about Jerry's Game, that Pixar short that came out like 20 years ago. I am sorry. I thought you were going to say that Danny and Sandy were the same person and they were playing chess against each other. I'm good.
Yeah.
So, Gabe, I did want to talk about your idea about the chaotic acting. I wonder if it's the director going, okay, you guys are supposed to be really young, so everybody be super energetic.
Right.
And then they just do it all the time.
I felt like that. I mean, I felt like it wasn't accidental. It was throughout.
Yeah.
They were always like that. And I don't feel like it was necessarily like one actor's choice or something. 'Cause it was just like all this there, Sandy's over there with all the girls at Rizzo's house, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And they're on the bed and they're jumping and they're throwing like stuffed animals at each other, and it's just like too much going on at all the time, and they were really being annoying to each other, and it really made it hard for me to like any of these characters. Like I was like, I would not hang out with any of these people because they would drive me nuts.
Right.
Did you go to high school?
I probably was like that in high school, but now I'm like, oh my God, I just can't take it. It's just too much. There's too much going on. It's overload.
But it reminded me of 30-year-olds trying to act like 18-year-olds.
Yeah.
But then they act like 15-year-olds.
Yeah. Yeah.
They went too far back.
Yes.
But I do feel like that was a directorial choice.
Yes.
It wasn't necessarily an acting choice because it was like every character throughout the whole film was like that. And there wasn't even really an exception to it, except for maybe a rare one, that like a side character you didn't see very much. But they were all like that.
Well, I would say the only one that really sticks out to me is close to the end when Stockard Channing sings There Are Worse Things That I Could Do. Mm-hmm. I think that was the most serious and most cinematic song that was actually shot, where it's not crazy and wild. It's just, it's the most realistic, I guess.
And she was alone.
Yeah. She has the backdrop of the drive-in, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping that they were going to get shot down by a fighter or something.
Yeah, it as far as those, as far as that choice, it was kind of overwhelming for me. It was too much for me. But I felt like there were definitely over the top performances in Little Shop of Horrors, but I felt like those actors were under control. They were over the top but under control.
And it was part of the world.
Sure.
And
it's
it made sense.
Campy
It made
and
sense
a little
in context, yeah.
B-movie-ish.
Yeah.
Like, again, your best example is what a strange and unusual plant. Well, while I'm here, I might as well buy $50 worth of roses.
Right. Like, can you break 100?
But it fits in that world.
Yeah.
But I mean, you look at even some of and again, this just goes back to, it felt more like a stage play. I mean, the whole time they're in Skid Row, the backdrop is obviously a backdrop.
Right.
Like
right.
they, it's lit that way. I don't know. I guess I would also go back to, we were talking just about cinematography, about lighting. The scene in Greece where she is at the pool and she's doing the Hopelessly Devoted, and the lighting is so soft. And I know that was a technique they did with women in the 50s, 60s, and 70s for those kind of very romantic and very bloomy and very soft. And it just, I don't know.
Vaseline on the lens.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know. It seemed odd because it was the only time they ever did it. I don't know.
I guess we'd speak about choreography during directing, right? What did we think of the choreography of some of the musical stuff? I thought the stuff in Skid Row at the beginning, like the opening, that was probably my favorite bit of choreography.
Oh.
And it looked like a giant play set. You know, the way they were moving through the world, you could almost envision it on a giant stage in front of you. And that to me was amazing that they could translate that. There were parts of Grease that felt very much like a stage play sort of thing, but I thought Little Shop of Horrors absolutely nailed that feel of like an on-stage musical.
Well, right. Yeah. Like Little Shop does the same thing that my favorite musical, The King and I, does, which it feels like you're watching it on a stage.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I get more enjoyment out of that for some reason.
The woman that starts off Skid Row, the alarm goes off at 7. Oh my gosh. She just, I mean, you walk into this movie, it's kind of like, I'm not sure what and then she just, bam, hits you with that voice. And you're just like, whoa, all right then.
Yeah.
I mean, they included a chorus in the movie. You know, they have like this Greek chorus leading us from scene to scene.
Yeah.
That's, you don't see that in, I can't think of another movie where that's
the trio.
Yeah. That's like featured that way.
It was a cool effect. It's kind of throwback to classic musicals. I like that.
Yeah.
I do have to say, now that we were talking about some of the fantasy stuff, the only other fantasy thing I can think of in Greece is when they do Beauty School Dropout.
Oh yeah, and Paul Anka comes down.
But it's kind of
that was a fun sequence. Yeah.
We don't know what kind of chemicals she's exposed to at beauty school.
Right,
that could be a hallucination.
It could be just her, fun imagination and stuff, and so it kind of fit, and it wasn't as hokey as the car at the end.
The car is so weird.
Oh God,
so weird.
And I also thought it was interesting, that they used some of the actors as some of the angels. So it made me feel like it was her dream, her imagination.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like that chaos theory, and that might actually refer to something else. That chaos theory also applies to some of the choreography in Grease. In some instances, there are some sequences that are really well put together. The Grease Lightning one, the High School Dropout, those are, and interestingly, both of those kind of revolve around a fantasy a little bit. The fantasy of fixing up this dump of a car, and then the fantasy of like, oh, what am I going to do with my life, kind of thing. I think those sequences are. What's that?
And then it goes back to the dumpy car after they have all this imagination.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think those sequences are really well put together. There were some weird editing things in the Grease Lightning, but the other sequences I felt like were also just kind of like chaotic. Kyle, in reference to Kyle's hand jive thing, that whole dance competition kind of thing, it was a little too long and it was kind of chaotic. It's kind of like, what's really happening here? And I felt like that applied to certain sequences in the choreography too. It wasn't tight throughout. There were certain sequences that were good, and others were just kind of like sloppy. But I don't know. Maybe that was just me.
And I would say that, like, at the beginning when they do "Tell Me More," "Summer Nights" is the name of that song. At the beginning, they're cutting between the girls and the guys, and it's set up to be very well organized and real tight, but it just kind of, it goes all over, and the girls keep switching their location, which I thought was weird, but the guys are kind of in the same place. They're on the bleachers. and it's I don't know if that was a directorial choice. I don't know. It just that seemed very odd to me too.
All right, let's put it to a vote. Andrew.
Little Shop of Horrors, hands down on that one.
Kyle.
Yeah, Little Shop of Horrors for me.
Tom.
Yeah, I'm going to go Little Shop of Horrors also.
Wow. Gabe.
Well, let's make it a four-fecta or whatever. Quadfecta?
Quadfecta. That sounds about right.
Okay. Yeah. A four-fecta? What? Yeah. I'll go with Little Shop too.
I drive a Ford Fuckta, so that's cool.
Randall Kleiser shot a scene of Kinnicky and Rizzo getting into a heated argument, which explained their attitude towards each other in the diner scene, where Rizzo threw the malt at Kinnicky. The fight scene was cut because it didn't match the tone of the rest of the film. It was much grittier, described one crew member as looking like something Martin Scorsese might have directed. So I'm wondering if there's like blood flying and
what didn't fit with the like.
Talking to me?
What? What?
The shot pulling away from Audrey after the song "Somewhere That's Green" was so long. I love this. Was so long that it required two cranes, one placed on top of the other, to pull it off. The camera actually shifts a little when the one crane stops and the other takes over.
That's
cool.
Awesome.
That is insane.
Nowadays,
That's awesome.
They do that with a drone.
That's awesome.
It's awesome.
That is cool.
That's sweet.
All right. Let's go.
Wait.
What?
Are you going to do your trivia? Because this was our cinematography. You said that you had this trivia that I couldn't talk about with the frames.
Yeah. It's an overall.
All right. I'll wait.
All right, fine. We can wait.
Jeez.
And speaking of overall, here's our
Killing.
fourth and final round.
I have never seen Little Shop of Horrors before. I think I mentioned that already tonight because when I was a child, it terrified me. There was a giant plant that ate people, and I wanted no part of it. As a child, I was scared of anything that did stuff it was not supposed to. So Child's Play, dolls that move, nope. Plants that eat people, nope, not interested. So anything out of the ordinary like that, I was not a fan of. But I watched Grease starting in my, I would say, late elementary school, early middle school years, over and over again, and had the CD in my CD player, owned it, loved it. Was really mad when my friend ruined my VHS copy of Grease by driving through a giant puddle at Burger King, and it was on the floor of his car, and he ruined it. So I was really mad at him. Thanks a lot, Matt. You're a dick. You still owe me a copy of Grease.
On VHS, no less.
On VHS. You better give it to me on VHS. You son of a bitch.
To hell with Blu-ray.
That's
I want
right.
it on VHS.
I was really surprised at how much I enjoyed Little Shop of Horrors.
Yep.
I feel bad now that I haven't watched it before this because it is so enjoyable. It's a lot of fun and really interesting. It's wacky, off the wall, really original. The stuff they do with the puppeteering and the plant is incredible. It's still incredible to me now, 40 years later, that they can manipulate and move this thing in this way. It still looks like movie magic. Like I can't quite figure out how they got it to work. And they do so many little things with the vines, and it's just incredible the way that's put together. And I love Rick Moranis and the way he plays Seymour. Audrey got on my nerves a bit at first, especially her voice. But I got used to it and really enjoyed the movie. Grease is always going to be a guilty pleasure of mine because I just enjoy that time period. And I love the music in the movie. But watching it or listening to it again this time, I don't know. Sometimes it feels like there's not a ton there. But I give both movies a hell of a lot of credit for transitioning something that's basically meant for the stage to the screen and doing it in successful ways. Like the music, the movies, everything, they flow together, they fit, they don't feel like you're just throwing music in. I don't want to, shit on other movies, but like when I've watched Mamma Mia, and that to me is a movie where like they're just throwing music into this. I know the stage play is based about it, but maybe it's just the singers and the people who are doing it. But I was like, no. So these are really great examples to me of what musicals can be. And it really made me want to see both of these plays on stage, which I've seen Grease before, but I've never seen Little Shop of Horrors on stage. But I would love to see that. I enjoyed both movies a lot. I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed Little Shop of Horrors. So yeah, overall, I like both movies. One I like more than the other, but I think there's great parts about both of them.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Like I said, I've seen Grease so many times, but being able to just watch it with kind of a discerning eye and, analyze it a little bit more from a filmmaker's perspective. I mean, it really could be a bad movie, and there's lots of bad musicals. I think after horror, musical might be the one genre where your hit and miss ratio is pretty low in terms of like kicking out a quality product. And I think both of these are really quality films. I think when I bought the Blu-ray for Grease, I bought it because I was like, oh, I should have this because, it's one of those movies that everybody needs to know and is familiar with. But watching it again, I'm like, I don't know. I may be more inclined to put this in when I need something, just something that I don't need to pay attention to too closely because there's just so many really great bits in it. And Little Shop of Horrors really surprised me too. Just like Kyle, I surprised how much I liked it, and I totally get why I didn't like it as a kid. It's a fucked up movie. Some weird shit happens in that movie with the dentist and the plant eating people and people getting chopped up, and my kids are dying to know when they can watch it. I'm like, you can't. It's a musical. You have to be older to watch musicals. So, and the same thing happened in Grease too, where they got to the, Lover's Lane scene, and my wife like jumped in front of the TV and she's like, where's the remote? Where's the remote? And I was like, what's the big deal? Oh yeah, they're totally screwing in the back of that car. So both of these actually surprised me in two different ways. And I'm kind of a little up in the air about which way I'm going to go on the last vote. So suck it.
Yeah. Tom said all there is.
Suck on my analysis.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Now, I think Grease will probably always be considered a classic. And I've seen it before, but I hadn't seen it for a long time. And I was a little bit let down with Grease. I just didn't feel like it was as engaging as it could have been, and I felt like it was a little bit too long. There was just a little bit too much time in between kind of the famous songs that we're all kind of waiting to hear. And I've seen Little Shop of Horrors several times in the past, and I really enjoyed rewatching it again. Some of the performances are just really fantastic to me. The whole dentist song with Steve Martin it made me just laugh out loud. It made me so happy. And coincidentally, I have a dentist appointment tomorrow. And that's all I'm going to be thinking about. I may actually ask him. I'm sure he's probably heard it 100 times. If he's ever heard that song before, I'm sure he knows all about it. But it's funny. That's all I'll be thinking about tomorrow is that dentist song. And I just felt like some of the songs in Little Shop of Horrors stick with me a little bit more. The dentist song, Suddenly Seymour. That kind of they stick with me a little bit better than the songs in Grease. I mean, the songs in Grease are just like, epically classic. Everybody knows them, But I think I prefer Little Shop of Horrors in that respect. I don't know. What do you think, Andrew?
I've seen both movies. Like I said, I grew up on both movies, so I've seen both of them many, many times. In fact, I saw Little Shop of Horrors, and then right after that, I saw Howard the Duck. And so, things coming from space. It was kind of this, connected thing. I would say that I enjoyed Little Shop of Horrors more, even growing up, just because it felt more fun and goofy. I knew the songs in that one before I knew Grease. I always felt Grease was kind of an adult musical. And I don't know if that was just because the acting or if it was just the topic was, stuff that I'm just like, whatever. I don't know. But I do enjoy both movies. The songs, I'm not as big a fan of the Grease songs, mostly because I did karaoke DJing for 15 years in summer nights. I swear to God, if I have to hear someone do summer nights again. It's you're right. They're both very iconic. They have music in them that you both, hopefully most people know. Suddenly Seymour, I would say, was probably the most popular out of that. But I would say that one of the things I really enjoy about Little Shop of Horrors, and of course it was the time period too, but all of the stuff with the plants, even the dentist scene, they do the shots from inside the mouth. They're all practical effects.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you were to make that today, they would definitely do a lot of CG, and it wouldn't be the same movie. It feels very real and very just fun to watch. Whereas Grease, you're kind of like, that's not how my high school was, but I guess in the 50s there was a lot of greasers and the pink ladies and nerds, and everyone was segregated. And I don't know. It was just, I don't know. Like I said, it was more of a fun film with Little Shop of Horrors. And I really enjoyed the fact that they did this really cool camera trick.
I'll get to it.
Okay. So I thought that was kind of neat. But so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. They're both classics to me, even though I would say that a lot of people consider Little Shop of Horrors more of a cult classic. They're part of my musical genres or musical films that I grew up with. So I consider them both classics to myself.
Let's talk about Audrey 2 a little bit more, and the visual effects in Little Shop of Horrors, because you touched on it a bit, Andrew, and I think they're fantastic even today.
That was amazing.
You know what?
Yeah,
I'll let Andrew tell the trivia. Go ahead, Andrew.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know how they did it. I'm just saying. I seriously, I don't think I want to know how they did it, because I was mesmerized by it, because I'm sitting there looking at it and I'm like, it's not stop motion and it's not computer. It's obviously not computer animated. Right. So I don't know. It was absolutely stunning. Are you seriously going to tell everyone how they do it?
Well, just this one scene.
Part of it.
I feel kind of bad now.
All right, I'll tell it.
I think it's amazing.
I'll
I think it's
tell
awesome what they did.
I think it is
incredible
awesome.
stuff.
Okay.
The scenes in which the two largest Audrey 2 puppets are performing with the actors are filmed at a lower speed. First at 16 frames per second, then at 12 frames per second for the final number. This means that the actors had to move and lip sync in slow motion.
Really?
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, and I know. Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder, were they playing back music at a slower rate so they could lip sync to it?
Yeah, they would have had to.
Yeah, they pantomimed, and they actually put they put Audrey 2, the voice, Stubby, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they put his vocals, Levi Stubbs, sorry. They put his voice through a special harmonizer so they could actually understand him on set, so that way they could react appropriately. And there's a lot of cuts that they do to actually make that work, so that way they didn't have to have Rick Moranis pantomime in slow motion for so much of those shots. But yeah, but I mean, you can even go back to the very first scene where they show the Audrey 2 grows and the tin can expands. I mean, that's
which
just
is awesome.
It's just awesome. I mean,
is.
it really is. And I know there was miniatures and stuff in the film, and I know they did a lot of stuff with that. But I mean, it is well done to the point where you can't tell. You really can't. And I mean, I know that there's some of the secrets behind it, like the scenes where he's sitting to go talk to Wink Winkelson, John Candy's, and he's holding the plant. I mean, it's obvious that that's a fake hand, and his hand is actually doing the puppet up through the, I mean, there's old tricks that they did, and it's just so fantastic that they use so much practical, but man, it is really cool.
It is. It's really convincing.
Not one blue screen was used.
Even with slowing down to 12 to 16, even slowing it down, I mean, like, the lips have so much like movement to them, and it's not just a simple open and closing. I mean, it snarls and smiles, and it looks like it's got like 100 different muscles in there. And obviously, I mean, Frank Oz's background with the Muppets was a huge benefit into doing this. But man, who would have thought that the Muppets would lead to something just so cool. And what a cool combination of the skills that he had at his disposal at the time.
Right.
And unfortunately, I don't know the visual effects artist, but I know that they did stuff like they actually rebuilt the sets smaller for some of the scenes. So that way, because they had different size Audrey 2s, so that when Audrey 2 was by itself, they actually were shot on a small set, but they just moved the camera to make it look like it was bigger than it was, so they could have a normal size puppeteer actually working the plant. Which that I mean, who thinks of that? And who sits down and goes, you know what, we're going to just reproduce this set, perfect tile by tile, everything smaller, so that way we can shoot these shots. That's brilliant. That's just brilliant.
That is one thing I absolutely love about filmmaking.
Yes.
The ingenuity, nobody's ever done this. How do we do this? And then you do it, and it's brilliant. If they'd have made this movie 10 years later, it would have had such shitty CGI in it.
Yeah.
But they made it in 86, and they had to do it practically, and it looks unbelievable. Even now, 30 years, 40 years later? Oh my God, it looks incredible.
It stands up to time because
it's just practical. Nuts. Yeah, I was blown away watching it. I had never seen a puppet that big being operated and with that much articulation. It looked, better than an animatronic. Like it. I just don't know how they did it. It must have been so much work.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's amazing that they pulled it off. I love it.
And the creature shop work, with the painting of the Audrey 2's lips look wet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, they looked at every little detail, and even his body is not flat, and the vines that come out, they're not, just tubes with socks wrapped around them painted green thrown on set. I mean, everything moves, everything has life to it. The leaves twitch. I mean, there's just so many subtleties that they did to make it look that way.
Yeah. One of my favorite ones was when it was like a little tiny plant, and he pricks his finger and he's sucking his finger, and then you hear that sound.
Yeah.
Man. And then you look, and that little plant is doing that, and the way
just
they made
tiny
it do
movements.
That, they made it do that perfectly. Like that, it looks like that little tiny thing is like, trying to suck at a teat, and it wants a little bit of blood, and it's just like just all those little kind of like excruciating details are just fantastic. I wish they would do more of that stuff today.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Agreed.
How many people in the world can do that though? Like there can't be that many professionals at that level, you would think, for that job anymore.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know, but they're doing some pretty good practical things, and like the Marvel series and Star Wars series. I mean, they've they really tried to get a little bit away from the CGI stuff, more so on Star Wars, I think, than Marvel. But you know,
Well,
and the fans really rejected bad CGI, and I think at least filmmakers now are saying, can we do this practically better than we can with CGI? And you know, what's going to benefit the movie better rather than just looking at the dollars.
Right.
Star Wars 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. Well, and I think Mad Max Fury Road is a good example of that too. And I think it's a good blend of those things. They do as much as they can practically, and then they enhance that with the CG.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great mix.
Yeah,
you
don't
know,
wait on it.
Do the things you can, do the things you can do safely, and then everything else, you know, try to replicate with CG.
And I find it interesting in today that, you know, finding a special effects house to do CG characters and backdrops and stuff, they're a dime a dozen. To find a good visual effects artist that can do real practical effects that can then bleed into having, you know, special effects enhance the scene, they're much harder to find. Mm-hmm. That skill has definitely, I think there was just almost a decade where that visual effects artists were not being trained, they weren't being used, and so that skill has maybe dropped off the radar a little bit. And I believe it's coming back, but I mean, there were such amazing creature artists, you know, in the 70s and the 80s doing stuff that
miniatures.
I mean,
miniatures, models and miniatures, and spaceships,
aliens and creatures and just things that you're just like, man, they wired that up and they made this robot that actually look, you know, like we've talked about Terminator and some of the cool stuff that the actual visual effects did on set that were just so neat. I mean, they built mini robots to do some of this stuff. That to me is just that is well worth anything else that you could put in a CG computer or a CG scene using a computer. Well, hands down.
I mean, just look at Adam Savage, right? He's got his start at ILM making models for the Star Wars movies. Yes. And then all of a sudden they closed down the model shop because everything was going CG. And luckily, you know, that happened to him because we got Mythbusters and he does his show Tested now and like that. But there's a guy that loves practical effects, right? Like his shop is just filled with props that he makes.
And he's still good at it.
Oh yeah, he's still he did one. I know Gabe would like it because I mean I brought this up last episode, but he made one of the Blade Runner blimps off of the technical specs from the movie, right? Like they got their hands on the actual model specs, and he built his own, and it's incredible.
Just recently, for this show. Oh, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, check it out. You look up Tested on YouTube because he has a show on YouTube.
But I mean, even like if you look at Star Wars is so easy because it's so front and center. I mean, you could talk about Marvel too, but you know, in the Last Jedi that they just did, some of the weapons that some of the actors are holding aren't even real. They're CG. They were put in completely later, and they just pretended they had them.
Right.
And, you know, back when Star Wars originally, that was not possible. They built all of the guns. They built the lightsabers. They built the staves. You know, they had to have that perfected detail when they built that kind of stuff. And that really I'm bringing it back to Little Shop of Horrors because, I mean, that really shows that talent, that artistry, that passion that goes into doing those kind of visual effects really, really pays off in this film.
True. Very true.
Yes.
All right.
Agreed.
Let's put it to a vote. Kyle.
Oh, man. If you'd ever asked me if I'd have voted against Grease in any musical category, I would have told you you're nuts because it's my favorite musical ever. But Little Shop of Horrors has so many things going for it that are so cool and different. Man, this one is really hard for me. I feel like I'm betraying the last 34 years of my life when I thought Grease was the best musical I'd ever seen. Oh, I really am agonizing over this. I'm going to vote for Little Shop of Horrors.
All right. Tom.
Yeah, I know I voted for Little Shop of Horrors, I think, in every category except Grease. So but I have to give it to Grease. I mean, Grease is Grease. It's one of the first musicals people think of, and when they think of movie musicals. So,
All right, Gabe.
there it is.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it a fuck quad fuck what
Quick, Gabe is stroking
a
out.
quadfecta. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Little Shop of Horrors, and I think I voted for them in every category.
You have. Andrew.
Yeah, this Little Shop of Horrors, hands down. No, yeah.
All right. Before we move on to recommendations, as I said at the beginning of the show, I have some beef with one of these films, and let me just set the time and my mood and the reason why I hate this. Like Andrew talked about doing DJ work. In the early 2000s, I was a bouncer, and I found, I was working bars and nightclubs, and I would hear Summer Lovin' and Grease Lightning medley at least 6 times a weekend.
When they did the dance mix.
Yes. And I learned hate is a strong word. Hate is a very strong word, and I don't like to use it a lot, but I will use it whenever I describe Grease. I hate Grease. I hate that movie with a passion. I hate every single song. I hate every frame of that movie. Because
Why did you let us pick it? Did you hate it before we picked it?
I did, but this is not just my show.
I know.
And I still watched it. And I did pick out some stuff that I enjoy out of Grease.
Oh.
While
But
you rocked on the
Just
couch.
reformed.
And went,
I am still I am still hating Grease, but not nearly with the blood boiling fury that I usually do. The blood boiling has subsided. But my mom used to watch it when I was a kid, and I hated it then. And then I would hear that dance medley like 6 times a weekend. And I would just want to, there's a reason why I would want to fight someone being a bouncer. And that's because that song was played. I hated it. Oh God, even to this day, it drives me crazy.
That song made you want to fight?
Yes, that song made me angry.
Summer Lovin'. I'm going to kick this man's ass to Summer Lovin'.
Actually, it's funny you bring that up. One of the biggest brawls that I was ever in, trying to get people to stop, was actually during that medley.
Oh my God.
Yes, who fights to that song, right? So
well, she's a real pussy wagon. So,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. But like I said, I don't like to use the word hate that much because I think it's overused, but I will reserve that word for Grease. I cannot stand that movie. Not at all. And
Wait,
I sat down.
So what did you like about it?
Yeah. Tell us.
So last time I saw it was when I was a kid, when my mom would, whenever it was on one of the movie channels, oh my God, it's that John Travolta. And this is the first time I've watched it since I was, 30 some odd years, right? And I sat down and I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch from a filmmaker standpoint. I have to agree, I love some of the camera direction. Like Gabe said, the low light. I liked some of the direction. And honestly, I kind of wish I would have just watched it on mute because I was caring more
drama on mute.
Right. I was caring more about, the image and what I was seeing and not the music. Like I was just trying to push that out. So I totally did enjoy watching the film work. Not the acting, not the songs, but I did enjoy watching these people use their craft. And what can I say about Little Shop of Horrors that you guys haven't already said? I've enjoyed that movie for a long time. I've had the soundtrack for a very long time. But one thing I want to note, some of you know him and some of you don't, but James and Andrew, whenever I would be able to make it out to Billy Joe's and karaoke nights, they would do Suddenly Seymour together. And it's brilliant. I loved it. I absolutely, it was one of the funniest things I've seen in a long time is James and Andrew doing Suddenly Seymour. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Hey.
But yes.
So
Grease
do I get to throw in my little bit of trivia then for you?
Sure. Go ahead.
So growing up, I was obviously very much into acting and things like that. And I've actually acted in both of these Broadway shows. Yes. So I was the Teenage Dream. I actually got to do the Beauty School Dropout. And then in my senior year in high school, I was actually Seymour in Little Shop of Horrors. And we actually had the final Audrey 2 was about the size of a VW Bug that was on stage. And our puppeteer was basically hunched over, bent at the waist with a bar across her back. And she would stand up like she was doing, I don't know, presses to make it talk. And so she was just moving up and down, and we had someone off stage with the microphone, and she would just have to sync. She knew the lines and the music enough that she would sync it up as best as she could. But yeah, we actually did both of them on stage. And so I've been in both.
That's awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's fun.
Let's move on to our recommendations. I'll start it off real quick so I can get to the math and calm myself down after talking about Grease. I'm not sure if I've suggested this movie before, but it still kind of takes place around that same time frame. It's about a couple of high school grads spending one final night cruising the Strip with their buddies before they go off to college. It is the second movie George Lucas ever directed. It's called American Graffiti. Came out in 1973. Stars Richard Dreyfuss, Ron Howard, Paul Lamette, and it's got Wolfman Jack. And did I say Harrison Ford? No.
It's rock and roll time.
It's Harrison Ford's first movie that he's actually in.
Yep.
Which is incredible. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's different how George Lucas approaches it. The radio is kind of one of the mainstays. I mean, because cruising back then, you would just cruise around and listen to the radio. So you hear all these great hits from the 50s and 60s. So definitely check it out. It is American Graffiti. So let's start off with, let's go to Kyle.
Okay, my recommendation is one that Mike helped supply me with. He reminded me of a movie that shares a director in common with one of these films, and is another movie from 1986, and it's called Flight of the Navigator.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before, but I was obsessed with this movie as a child.
I'm right there with you, man.
I had it on VHS that I taped off HBO or something like that, Cinemax, some one of those channels, and I must have watched it. I cannot count the amount of times I watched Flight of the Navigator. And the cool ass ship that is like super reflective, and Pee-wee's the voice, and there's all these aliens on board. And it is just I thought it was the coolest movie when I was a kid. Although admittedly I had terrible taste, as I also loved the movie Mac and Me. So
poor man's ET.
Absolutely. I've talked about this with Mike. I don't know if I've shared on the podcast, but as a kid, I always liked the knockoff version of whatever was popular. So I was into GoBots, couldn't care about Transformers. When I bought G.I. Joe toys, I bought the mindless goons, like the henchmen. I never had Snake Eyes or Serpentor or anything like that. I had like 5 of the robot bad guys, But I loved Flight of the Navigator. Couldn't care for E.T. or Mac and Me. I just loved everything that was a knockoff. But yeah, Flight of the Navigator. I want to watch. I probably haven't watched it in 20 years.
Dude,
I
you
would
need to
love
come over and I'll
revisit
watch it with you.
I would love to revisit it. I
I'll
have
watch
not
it.
seen it.
We should just all have a viewing. All of us have
Just go watch Flight of the
Great.
That would be
I have
awesome.
to admit, I'm not sure I've seen it.
Really?
Oh,
So
It's about
maybe
a
this
kid
is
who
maybe I need to
like
be
falls
like,
into a ravine and wakes up 8 years later, but he hasn't aged. And they're like trying to figure out what happens to him, what's gone on. He goes to like NASA.
Are you talking about Interstellar or what?
because what's her name from Sex and the City is in it.
Sarah Jessica Parker's
Sarah
in it.
Jessica Parker.
Yeah.
Because she's the one that she's gonna go to Twisted Sister, and he goes, "I've never heard of her."
Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
I love
directed
that movie.
by Randall Kleiser. Sorry.
Ah.
Yep. Joey
Flight of the
Kramer,
Navigator.
Paul Rubens, Cliff DeYoung, Veronica Cartwright, Sarah Jessica Parker. Yeah.
When you Google the movie, Joey Kramer's face pops up and it's a mugshot. So that's not a great sign for where his life went after Flight of the Navigator. But
Okay, we'll have to have a Cinesmack viewing of Flight of the Navigator. I think
Damn.
that would be fun.
I've watched it so many times. But yeah.
Yeah, it's good. All right, great pick. Andrew.
So this is relatively new and is fitting with inside of the musical genre that we have picked for today, and that is Anna and the Apocalypse. So it is a apocalyptic story, your pretty traditional apocalypse with zombies, except it's a musical. So when they say it's a Shaun of the Dead meets La La Land, it's pretty spot on. It's goofy. It's kind of a little corny here and there, and they have great musical numbers, and it's extremely entertaining. It's fantastic, and it was one that I've watched it twice since I've seen it, and I will definitely put it in my eye holes and my ear holes again because it was awesome. So Anna and the Apocalypse.
All right, Andrew. Thank you. Gabe?
Well, yeah, I was having a hard time with this one. And I was trying to think of other musicals that we, haven't necessarily recommended or watched before.
It's kind of difficult because we've done, 2 or 3 shows with musicals in them.
Yeah.
And then we've also recommended musicals.
Right. And so I was trying to think what can I do? And then I thought, well, what are movies with good music? And do you guys have any ideas? Like what's a film that you think of that has great music in it? Not necessarily like the score, not like a John Williams type score or
Scott
something
Pilgrim.
like that.
Scott Pilgrim.
Scott
that's a good
Pilgrim,
pick.
yes.
Spawn.
That was fantastic. I just saw
Bohemian
that.
Rhapsody.
Well, I haven't seen that yet.
I love the Spawn soundtrack and The Crow.
Yep.
Oh yeah, those are good ones.
Yeah.
Those are great. Yeah, I just saw Scott Pilgrim at Flicks, and still fantastic, just wonderful. But I think I've recommended that one in the past, and so I was trying to think of something I hadn't recommended, and I thought of "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou."
Oh, good one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really fall into the typical kind of musical genre because they don't really break out into song. They kind of do. I mean, some of the characters are singing in the movie, and that's a fantastic song, by the way. But yeah, the music, just the music in general, just really drives that film, and it's wonderful. And of course, it's the Coen brothers, so it's really kind of quirky and interesting, and the cinematography is gorgeous. Does anybody know? I didn't look. I don't know. Is that the cinematography? Is it the guy who did Blade Runner 2049? What's his
give
name?
me a
Please
sec
help
here.
me. Please help me. But the cinematography.
Roger Deakins.
Roger Deakins. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Yes.
Sorry, my mic was off.
It's really just a great, entertaining film all around. But the music, in particular, stands out, and it's a fun. I have that soundtrack, and I listen to it from time to time, and it's a fun soundtrack too. So, if you've never actually seen "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou," I would highly recommend it.
Yeah.
And another movie that they invented a technique that is now widely used, which is color grading, that had never been done the way that they did it in "Oh Brother, We're Out There."
Right. They gave it a very kind of sepia tone. It's got a very kind of like, yeah.
Because the guy that did it, he actually was like, we're going to scan this in and we're going to color grade it digitally and then reprint it to film. And they were like, no, you're not. He's like, trust us. And that was the first time that had ever been done.
And they had to, because when they shot, like, all of the fields were green, like bright green. So they had to So they had to correct it to fix the color of the fields.
To make them look all kind of yellow like they look in the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has a very distinct look.
Yep.
Oh,
I want to watch that movie. Now you make me want to watch that movie again, Gabe.
Yeah.
It's
I haven't
good
seen
flick.
it in years.
Yeah,
really good.
Great performances too. You know, George Clooney is awesome in it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just a lot of great performances throughout. And the music just grabs you.
All right. Thank you, Gabe. Tom?
So I don't know what it is with musicals, but people, like, the movies as themselves are not typically very good, but for some reason when it's a musical, our standards get lowered a little bit, and that's the case for my pick today. So my wife and my kids made me sit down and watch The Greatest Showman, and God damn it, I really liked it.
It's actually really good.
It's really good, and it's not. I mean, as a movie itself, it's not. There's nothing really stunning about it, but the performances in it are really good. The music. Almost all the songs are really, really great, and it's got a great story in it. And it's a really, really, I keep saying really too much, but it's a fun movie. And
you really do.
There's not a lot of musicals that I can recommend, and I was gonna recommend My Blue Heaven because it's got Steve Martin and Rick Moranis in it, but it's not really that good. It's just a really fun movie from my childhood. So I will go with the pretty decent musical over the not so great movie from my childhood. But I can't imagine anybody hasn't seen it. If you've seen a Hy-Vee commercial lately, you've heard the music from it for some unknown fucking reason. I have no idea why that song is in there.
Yeah,
because when I'm buying meat, that's me. So,
I didn't know if we had recommended that one in the past. That one crossed my mind too because I saw it recently and I was kind of taken by surprise how much I enjoyed it. And it's one of those that is kind of like it's a historical piece, but the music is not from that time period. It's a little bit more modernized kind of music.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a real fail to me. I'm like that takes me out of it a little bit, but in this case, it somehow really worked.
Yeah, it did, and
and Hugh Jackman is, I hate that guy.
So
he's great.
He's one of those guys that I hate because I like him so much.
Oh, yeah. So like talented. Denzel.
Yeah, I don't hate Denzel. I just don't think he's as good of an actor as everybody says. Anyway, like him or Justin Timberlake. I hate that guy.
Yeah.
Ryan
Reynolds springs to mind because I'm like, damn it, you're attractive and really funny.
Actually,
fuck you. You're only going to be one of those things.
There's
going to be both.
There's something that will make Gabe's head explode, and there's a picture of Hugh Jackman sometimes does these fun little videos and stuff. There's a picture of him taking a selfie in his hotel room wearing a robe, and Ryan Reynolds is dressed as Deadpool in the bed. It's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
Have you seen their commercial where they make commercials for each other's whiskey?
Yes.
No.
Oh my God. Because Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, supposedly they've decided that the feud is no longer on and they're not going to fight anymore. And Ryan Reynolds does this really nice, beautiful commercial. And then Hugh Jackman is like, oh, you were like serious. We're like not feuding anymore. Oh, well, you don't want to see my commercial then. It's fabulous. Like, watch that. It's great.
Do they actually each have their own whiskey? Or is that just part of the
Ryan Reynolds has a gin.
Yeah, it's a gin.
Oh, it's gin. Sorry.
Which I tried and I hated.
And Hugh Jackman
they sold it to me and it was gross. It tastes like black licorice. That's gross.
Just real quick.
Like Uzo.
Real quick, Tom. I don't know if you know this, but a lot of people consider My Blue Heaven to be the spiritual sequel to Goodfellas.
What? Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's what happens when he. That's what happens when he goes into witness protection.
Yes. Isn't that crazy?
It is.
Weird.
I was like, I know some trivia about it, so I just had to look it up. All right, let's poke the monkey, find out who won.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner, by a green thumb, is Little Shop of Horrors!
13-3. Little Shop of Horrors.
Wow. I didn't think it would be that lopsided. And, my recollection of Grease is that it is such a classic that everybody loves Grease so much. And they love the songs. And, they're inherently, like sing-alongable. And I would have never guessed it would be so lopsided.
Really? Sing-alongable?
Maybe we're just...
for me,
I made that up. I know you hate it. You don't want to sing along.
If you'd have made me put money on this a week ago, I would have bet almost everything I had. I would have voted for Grease in every category.
Right.
Because I never thought I could see a musical I enjoyed more than Grease. But man, Little Shop of Horrors blew me away.
That's what I love about doing this. Right?
Yeah.
And it's funny.
I found so many cool movies just doing this that I never would have watched if it wasn't that we were doing them on the show. And I'm so glad I watched Little Shop of Horrors because it was awesome.
All right, let's move on to where people can find you and maybe send you to the dentist like Gabe's going tomorrow. Tom?
People can generally find me at my Australian plant shop selling man-eating plants that talk like John Travolta.
I was going to try to do an impersonation, but I'm not sure I can.
Do it.
Up your nose with a rubber hose.
You guys give a lot of credit to Little Shop of Horrors for making that plant look lifelike. Grease did the same thing with John Travolta, so they actually slowed the film down.
Did he sing in slow motion?
They actually filmed it in reverse, and he actually looks younger at the end of the.
Do you think when he's going in the car at the end, he's taking her to meet Xenu?
Yes.
That makes so much sense now.
Oh my god!
Does
you ruined Grease for me?
It's a Scientology
that's awesome.
Scientology metaphor.
Jeez. Right.
Oh jeez, Gabe.
Oh jeez.
You can look me up on Facebook or you can check out onegenomeShort.com.
All right, Andrew.
ArizonaInkStudios.com, and that's where all the social media connections can be found for like YouTube's, Facebook's, Twitters, and Instagrams. So, yeah.
All right, Kyle.
You can find me on Facebook, I suppose. I'm still debating whether or not I want to register Choke Jerkin on Twitter. Not sure how that's going to go or what I want that account to be. Stay tuned.
All right.
And for your listening audience, that was brought up last episode. So if you're not caught up, maybe you should go back and listen.
Yeah.
Nice.
Find out about Choke Jerkin. We make that joke in excess, I think.
It's hilarious. You can find me on Facebook.
Come on, nobody got to in excess. Come on, guys.
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can look up all the Southsider Studios stuff on YouTube. Just search Southsider Studios. But this podcast, would appreciate it if you could leave us a review on iTunes or whatever podcasting service you use. It helps other people like you find us, and we get more listeners. You can contact us at cinesmac@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmac. For April, we try to catch that wascally white wabbit as Donnie Darko takes on Harvey. For Gabe, Kyle, Andrew, Tom, and myself, thanks for listening, and go catch a flick. Thank God he didn't play it. I was waiting for Tom to play it.
Which one? Summer Nights?
So, yeah. It's like
Don't make me
I was waiting for an impersonation of somebody.
I was going to do the Don't Make Me Laugh.
We could do the...
Everybody, it's Wolfman Jack, and we're here, and it's going to be rock and roll all night long.
And that's a really good Wolfman Jack.
I'm a 35-year-old who goes to high school. This is not a problem, right?
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.